Hello, welcome to the 350 Wisconsin Architects Forum. My name is Steve Whalen from DC Engineering, co-hosting this forum with Lisa Kennedy, the Executive Director with American Institute of Architects, Wisconsin. This edited recording of the forum highlights key points raised by the panelists during the hour-long event that was held in October 2022. I am joined today by three different types of architects. First, we have residential designer Amber Westerman, who built her own net zero, all-electric demonstration home in Spring Green, Wisconsin. Next, we have Joe Galbraith from Carnahan Architects, who work on many commercial buildings implementing adaptive reuse and historic preservation on many of their projects. Lastly, we have Monica Miller from Kaler Schlater Architects, who work on a variety of building types while integrating sustainable design. Let's start with a basic question. What is your approach to working with green clients?
Find out what my client's motivation is, whether they're more aspirational or if they have some practical skills that they're bringing to this. It depends on how much they know about green building to start with, and if they understand that they need to be an advocate for their own project from design all the way through construction, because the residential construction market is not really set up to do green buildings very easily. So the client has to be very, very involved with every decision and be an advocate on their own behalf. So I found that new home builder or clients, homeowners, take a more comprehensive approach to green building, whereas a remodeling or remodeling client usually is dealing with some immediate practical problems that need to be solved. So their spatial or practical problems can include insulation and air sealing and perhaps solar panels, but that focus on green building can fall away pretty quickly in the face of all the practical decisions that they need to make to bring their building up to a comfort level that they're looking for. So I do like working with new home clients because the green building aspect of it seems to stick from the beginning all the way through better than it does with my remodeling clients.
Sure. Do you find most of your clients come to you with a plan to do a green building, or they're looking for you to help them to develop that plan?
Well, I definitely look for clients who are already interested in this, because it's kind of a hard sell if they've never even thought about it before. So I like to use the analogy of an electric car. If somebody's in the market for a new car or a used car, they're either thinking electric car or they're not. And so the people who are interested in going with an electric car understand that there's going to be an upfront extra cost for that car, but their monthly operational costs are going to be way lower, and their ongoing maintenance cost is going to be lower. So that same mindset has to be brought to bear to a new home or a major remodel that focuses on green energy. That idea that you're going to pay a little bit more upfront for the process. You're going to have to be more discerning customer or buyer in the market, and you're going to have to put some research into it.
Gotcha. How about you, Joe, with your perspective on doing both commercial and residential buildings, and then also the adaptive reuse, similar to the remodels that Amber talks about? How does it typically work with you?
Yeah, I would say, similar to Amber, it's really trying to find people's motivations. And starting the conversation, we ask the question as part of our onboarding process with clients is, what are your sustainable goals? And sometimes that'll then engage into a conversation. Some people, as they're starting these projects, might have very clear sustainability goals. And other times they might have sustainability goals that they're not even really aware of. Sometimes it comes down to products and health in terms of off-gassing of materials, where materials sourced from, how can we reuse materials? I think that in terms of with an existing building, our core goal on a lot of our existing building projects is to reuse and repurpose as many materials as we can, because the embodied energy is already spent on a lot of these materials. And if we're like take my wall, for example, this is a material that's a reclaimed flooring material that was applied as a wall covering, versus getting a gypsum panel that was, does anybody know where gypsum is even mined? So it has to be mined and processed into a board material and then shipped. Whereas this material was taken out of a warehouse locally and then, recrafted by people to be used in the building. So I think our approach a lot of times has to do with those materials. Secondarily, with existing buildings, the systems are usually very outdated. So how do we bring up, the baseline is code. So just getting these old heating and cooling systems up to baseline code. And then there are certain programs out there, like PACE Equity is one that we see in common use for people doing redevelopment projects in historic buildings, because that helps with their capital stack as they're trying to create the financing for these projects. And PACE is a program it's called Property Assessed Clean Energy. And it can be used if you can demonstrate that your systems are going to beat kind of the code minimum standard by X amount. You can qualify for this money that comes in as equity that then gets charged against the property. Basically, it levered against the property owner, almost like a tax. So spread out over 30 years. So it's a creative way that developers, especially that are tackling historic preservation or adaptive reuse projects, can accomplish a sustainability goal and also do good on the financial side.
Sure. So Monica, maybe if you could talk about the clients that you work with and what the green process, or what the process might be, whether or not it's a green building or not, and share with us how that works with you and your clients.
Sure. So at Kaler Slater, we're able to work on wide array of sizes of projects and clients. So if we're working with an institutional client like a university or a hospital, usually they already have a sustainability program or certification requirements like LEED. They usually are already committed in some way to a sustainability program. So that makes the conversation very easy. But we also work with private clients like developers, and then it depends on the type of developer they are. Usually a developer will only own a building for a short while and then sell it. So it's harder to convince them of long-term savings. When talking about design, usually they need some kind of financial reward if it's not required by a municipality to do something. They're usually more likely to design to a code minimum. But as architects, we do have design approaches that we can integrate regardless by considering sun orientation and fenestration to buildings for shading. It's once you get to higher performance wall sections with layers that are beyond code, that cost increases, that we would then have to have more specific conversations with the client on what goals would they have for the performance of their building. But if they're a smaller developer or smaller client, like the ones that Joe was referencing, where they stay with their buildings, it's much easier to talk about, that return on investment that they're going to see long term by spending that money upfront on better design and better performing buildings.
Makes sense. Our next question is, what is the difference between today and 10 years ago in regard to green building and design? And what do you expect will be different 10 years from now?
I was recently came across a survey that said that millennials and Gen Xers are a lot more interested, I should say Gen Zers, are more interested in green building. And this is very encouraging to me because most of my clients are the baby boomers. They're the ones that have the money to invest in either a new home or a major remodel addition, such that they're looking for my services. But I'm encouraged to read that the younger generation, at least on paper, say that they are interested in green building. And the number one criteria that they have is indoor air quality, which is really interesting coming out of COVID. So they might be more interested in the non-toxic materials and products that I've been using in my homes. They're also interested in resiliency in the face of climate change. And that's not a conversation that I've had with my clients in the past. And then they're also interested in net zero. So the thing that I find is that compared to 10 years ago, clients are much more educated, obviously with the internet and with YouTube and being able to Google anything and take various seminars like we're having today. Homeowners are much more informed, and I found that they often are more informed than my builders about new products, about new processes, about the interesting, flashy new projects that you can see on the internet through Dwell magazine or other publications. So it has come as a shock to some of my clients that when they have a conversation with the builder's never heard of various products that they just have stumbled on the internet.
I will say consumer awareness, like how Amber was touching on, has become more prevalent, and it's really prevalent across building types. So programs like LEED, I think, did a good job of introducing sustainable design to the general public. And now there are even more certification programs, especially for larger buildings. You've got WELL, you've got Living Building Challenge, you've got programs that really push sustainability even further. Net zero are all possibilities now for buildings, and especially for larger clients. And then also with the material certification programs, it's a lot easier to make selections for healthy and less environmentally impactful materials. So that is just part of the cycle of consumers being aware of what's available to them, and then us as designers pushing even further with what can be possible and affordable for green architecture.
Yeah, I thought about this question a lot since we had a pre-meeting, and I was kind of having a hard time coming up with an answer, but there's one that actually really stuck out to me, and that's I think a change in how we think about the supply chain. And that's something that's really become an issue that we've all seen in construction, or if you've gone to buy an appliance in the last year or a car. But I think that really has a strong relationship to building materials and the green and sustainable nature of building materials, because things that are made and processed overseas and have to be shipped, I mean, there's a lot of carbon involved in that entire process versus materials that are local. And for me, it may be a cost neutral type of situation, because sometimes reclaimed materials or let's say commonly available materials might take more labor. I feel like it's maybe a shift of where those dollars are spent. Is it spent more? Are you spending more on labor, or are you spending more on that certain material? And I think there's a lot of added benefits to sourcing local material, sourcing reused and reclaimed material, because again, that takes those dollars and puts them into the pockets of people locally, because the person that is going to have to reshape or rehone this material is likely local, is someone that's a craftsperson that is involved locally. So I think that has a lot of benefits just in terms of job creation, skills. These are win-wins for communities when we do preserve buildings and reuse and adapt them.
The third question is, how can the general public help the architecture, engineering, and construction industry to promote green buildings?
Amber's been really preaching the importance of an educated consumer, right? So I think people need to be aware of it and ask for it of their designers. or of those that are providing the buildings to them. And they should work with professionals that are interested in and are capable of doing it. Not every architect's the same, just like not every hairstylist is the same. So you should really shop around and make sure that your values align with the professionals that you work with. And then lastly, from a larger perspective, I would recommend lobbying for requirements on a municipal level that, you know, if a building's over a certain size, it needs to meet X, Y, and Z. I think having those conversations with local municipalities on what is possible to require that isn't a hindrance, but is actually going to help create a healthy community is a worthwhile conversation to have.
To follow up on an earlier comment, are green buildings necessarily more costly?
I mean, it's in some ways it does cost more because it is higher quality. So sometimes, you know, that argument of the whole green building costs more. Well, it's a higher quality building, a higher quality product. So I don't think there should be an expectation that it shouldn't cost more, because there, you know, especially let's say insulation, there's just simply more of it. So it's going to cost more than less of it that meets have the power to influence our clients to site our buildings in such a way that make more sense, like actually use an overhang to shelter from the sun. There are things that we can do that are, I would say, zero cost type items that I think with the right design team, you know, you can be led to a more green solution that doesn't add any costs to the project. But in certain things with systems, you know, they are a higher, I would say, a higher end result quality. But how do we value those things then? You know, maybe from real estate appraisals, maybe there needs to be something about energy usage on homes that would be transparent with listings, or, you know, this home consumes X amount. It's like miles per gallon with cars. Maybe we have a standard out there for homes that are part of real estate listings that start to then put pressure on residential.
Also important to understand that the term green and the term sustainable has a wide range of meanings, and that can lead to a wide range of goals. So it's possible to have aspects of a building or a project be sustainable, but not necessarily do everything. And there's a lot of frameworks for green design out there that folks can educate themselves on. You know, maybe your goal is energy use, maybe your goal is water use, maybe you're thinking about well-being holistically. There's different aspects of the built environment that can be designed to be green or sustainable, which can also impact the cost.
A question from the live audience is, how do you support a project through barriers to help clients to achieve their green vision?
So I would say that the best way is to have as many decisions made upfront and products selected and really solid plans and details before you start the bidding process, and certainly before you start the construction process. So having as many decisions made ahead of time, and then the commitment by all parties to stick with those decisions and not renegotiate them as time goes on.
Part of that green building approach, regardless of the size of a client, if those are determined to be goals of a project early on, it's easier to stick with them. But as design professionals, we are used to working with our clients and constantly adapting the design, and up until just about it's built, or even during construction, we still have to be creative. Yeah. So it's just a matter of you know, being aware of what's going on and providing them the information they need to make the decisions, because at the end of the day, it's all the clients are the ones who make the final decisions, and we're there to be trusted advisors, and provide them with the information that they need. So
word in that is support the clients, because ultimately they're the ones with the checkbook that have to either fund the project or get it through to completion. So do that best on advising of what the consequence of maybe not following through on an early goal might be in the long term. So sometimes they just have to be reminded of the impact or how that will affect long-term operational costs, because saving a couple $100,000 up front could cost a lot more in the whole the long run of that building.
How can we influence the industry to make it easier for your potential clients to choose green buildings?
It's the comparison. I mean, it's like, what are you sometimes if people are trying to compare green and sustainable buildings to ordinary buildings, it's like comparing the electric car to the other cars. Sometimes it can be a hard comparison to make, and then just creating some metrics and value system around it. What are the consequences of not doing it? Carbon tax, things of that nature could help with when as new buildings are coming online. If you're not doing it a certain way, there could be these sticks instead of carrots that people react to both.
And the last question for our panelists concerns building electrification. Given the benefits of renewable energy, are all electric buildings becoming more popular?
My home is all electric, and my monthly average uses comes to $6.50. That's how much electricity I use at 12 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
So it's possible. And that's what I really try to, that's why I have my house open to the public by appointment to see my house. And I think that it's the most powerful way to convince people is when they see an actual example in person.
I have a client that's doing a custom house it's going to be all electric. So, and they're going to do radiant heating in the slab, and it's going to be an electric boiler. So, and they have land where they're going to do a solar array. They also have goats to be able to take care of the the maintenance around the panels. So
Right.
I will say, even in apartment buildings, that all electric is becoming more and more common.
You are seeing that. That's cool.
Yep.
Cool to hear. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We appreciate your support for a greener future. If you want to listen to the full-length version, please visit the link below and support 350 Wisconsin by visiting our website.